Tonight on the Star Trek Universe podcast, we're going to be discussing the second of the short treks on CBS All Access, Calypso.
Calypso!
Yeah, all that after this. Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
Man, that was a fun little short we just watched.
It is, and it's more indicative of what I was hoping to get from the short treks. Is way more in line with the idea I was talking about last week or a week or so ago, whatever it was, about wanting an anthology series and just like little tales outside of the canon.
Right.
Or inside of the canon, but like outside of like the primary storylines.
Agreed. And before we go too spoilery, what are your general quality thoughts?
I thought it was good, but unsatisfying on a certain level.
Interesting. I'm interested to hear why. I thought it was good. I liked it a lot. I definitely unsatisfying on some levels as well. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we feel about the same, as tends to be our way. To me and Jeff,
it is our way.
Me and Jeff over on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast did a podcast yesterday. We did a cast on who in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would be the best president. We wanted to give each come up with a list of our top 3 for president. Since all this election stuff's going on, thought it'd be fun. And we both ended up with the same list of 3.
That's great.
I was like, that was like me and Dave just did the Star Trek. This is our favorite Star Trek series, and we had the exact same list. And now me and Jeff have we all spend too much time together, apparently.
I was so confused. Like, my wife came to me and was like, she was basically telling me that same story. And she's like, they're doing this, the MCU cast, which I haven't gotten around to it yet because I'm so far behind on so much Marvel stuff.
Oh, we just posted it last night. It's fine.
She's like, yeah, so Matt and Jeff, they're doing like, who would be the best president? Like, who are the top 3 choices for president on the MCU cast? And I was just like, wait. What? She's like, yeah, because of the elections and everything. And I'm like, wow, Matt really has gone political.
Yeah, I
didn't know it was like it's people in the Marvel universe. I was just like, why are they talking about that?
Really steering into political talk on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. No. We very specifically at one point, and this is weird. Okay, at this point I'm just like recounting our other cast, but at one point we came across the idea that a lot of the things Star-Lords say would sound the same, like perfectly fine coming out of Donald Trump's mouth. Like when he's like, all right, you have a good plan, but it also sucks. Let's do my plan so it'll be better. It's like, yep, that's Star-Lord's kind of Trumpy. I get it. Yeah. It's fine.
I will say your number 1 on the president was mine as well.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. After she explained the premise, I was like, oh, well, obviously, so-and-so has to be president.
Yeah, so if you want to hear that, guys, go over to Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. Yeah. But let's talk about Calypso. Let's get back to it. Yeah. Spoiler alert. We're going to get into spoilers now for Calypso. We both liked it, but we're going to talk spoilery. So my biggest takeaway, I'm always analyzing what's going on in the universe and seeing what's like 1,000 years after Discovery, what's happening. And it's interesting to note that me and you have talked a lot about the Gene Roddenberry vision of kind of the utopia of Starfleet and how the human race will evolve to the point that we have no fighting. And it's interesting that 1,000 years past that, we have we're apparently at war. 2 different human groups are at war with each other.
It certainly seems that is the case, yeah.
Either that or some outside race has adopted a love of Betty Boop.
Right.
That is,
and they look human. Yeah.
well, no. We don't know what the other race looks like technically.
Oh, I mean, I just thought that. No, never mind. You're right.
Yeah,
the Vidreish.
It could be the Vidreish. Just really love Betty Boop. They could be straight up aliens, but with a love for Betty Boop. But I think that's far fetched. I'm going to go with they're also humans, which means we've got two separate clans of humans out and fighting in the universe. Which, what does that mean?
I don't know. Like all of the things that they like. That's my big problem with the piece, is that all of the things they kind of like waved in our faces in the trailer is like 1,000 years after Discovery, and like they're just you're not going to find out why is 1,000 years after Discovery. You're not going to find out like what happened to Discovery, what happened to the crew. You're like absolutely nothing, except for the fact that there are possibly two factions of humans fighting.
Right. Well, it's just, this world is double or triple the distance from our world to Discovery. So it's a long time in the future. You know, once you get into the talking about hundreds of years and thousands of years, it just starts to all meld together. But if you think about the distance between Star Trek Discovery and our current time, and then the distance that goes forward, it's almost 3 times the distance. So, like, it really it makes sense that this just is a completely different world. That they can almost do whatever they want, which I guess they did.
That's the appeal.
But I don't really. I mean, it's not like we want to know what happened to the crew of Discovery.
Well, I mean, they don't have to. It doesn't have to be our crew of Discovery.
Sure, but I think they're holding on. I think they're intentionally. See, this is actually one of my problems with it. Is we know Discovery survives now. Like they just need to make sure they're keeping with the canon. Like we know Discovery survives, and we know. So if they ever decide to leave Discovery, and they're like, you know, it has to stay here. The crew will be back, which is also strange. It's all strange.
It's also perfectly acceptable, I think, that at some point they could still write whatever the hell they want on Discovery, and then people are like, well, what about Calypso? And they're like, oh, and Michael Chabon or whatever his name is could just come out and say like, no, that was a parallel reality.
Right, and I hate that. I don't want that at all. I know you've resigned yourself that Star Trek is all kinds of parallel realities. I've resolved myself to some degree. I feel like I try to come up with stuff, but I'm also perfectly willing to say like we see stories from multiple realities in the original series just because of like statements of how long ago certain things took place and the inconsistencies in star dates, and also just, you know, inconsistencies within the entire franchise. Sure. But like that, there's a certain amount of flaws because it's just humans making the shit. Sure. It's another thing when you just toss out the book altogether. Then nothing ever has consequences. And we've had this discussion on every episode, probably. So,
I don't want to keep having it.
Yeah, no. Like, but I need there to be consequences for show. If you're going to choose to make a show. Secondly, who is it Cora? Cora is the computer. Zora, that's it.
Yeah.
Who is Zora? Is it supposed to be an AI that got on Discovery somehow? Is it the computer?
She stated, I think it was the ship's computer. She stated that she started evolving once she was alone.
Yes, she did, but I just didn't. The voice is different, obviously, which is fine. Are those little in the current Discovery? In the current ship, do we have those little talking dials or whatever?
I don't think so.
Those talking thermostats?
No, I don't think so, no.
It seems strange that the computer would... It already has the ability to speak. It seems weird that it would, like, create a visual representation.
We don't know how long after the current show this happened, so they might create those little talking thermostats. Right. And then sometime in the future. Sure. The other thing about setting this after Discovery is if they ever decide to redesign the ship completely. Like if they do decide to like update the bridge or whatever. Right.
Who knows? Maybe they really do have a plan and this is all like they're going to tie it into the end of this season. Maybe the end of this season we lose Discovery and we get a Discovery B next season or something, you know?
Maybe. Or, you know, it could be easily something like, you know, like on Voyager they did, well, on Next Generation they did stuff like this where it would be like, there are two Enterprises in a vortex. You know, like what happens to this Enterprise? This Enterprise goes off and does this.
Right.
That's true. Usually on Next Generation they just destroyed that Enterprise somehow. But yeah. On Voyager is like, here's an entire episode. Oh shit, everything like really played out. And there's like, oh nope, that was the alternate Voyager that went off on this course. And there was some sort of like phase ionic thing, and there were two Voyagers now.
Put science words together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did.
That's
what they did, man.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Like, oh. It was the Millicochrans. The Millicochrans with the atmospheric phase conductor. I mean, that's what happened.
That's Star Wars. That's Star Wars.
I'm sorry.
Metachlorians.
Sorry. I said Millicochrans. I thought.
I know.
I thought I was being pretty good. I thought I was staying within the universe.
You were. So, I loved this actor. Who was on this episode. I need to know his name. I don't.
I don't either.
Because I'm a bad podcaster. I'm looking it up. Calypso.
Look it up, man. Let's do it. Let's figure it out.
Burp. Calypso. Short track. IMDb. Aldous Hodge.
Aldous Hodge.
Apparently, the actor's name is Aldous Hodge.
That's great.
I like him a lot. He's super good. I'm only frustrated by this episode in that I want more of what's going on. Like, I really want to know about this 10-year war between two different human factions and what Kraft's place is and all of that. Or I'll call him Funny Face now.
Oh, gosh.
This felt very much, and I said that I felt like it was going to be this way, and it did. This felt like a Doctor Who episode. To me.
I can see that.
Although the fanciful nature of like the humans sort of falling in love with the AI, and it's just kind of like a one-off thing, and he's a soldier from a war that you don't get to see. Like, it just all felt very Doctor Who to me.
It felt very Twilight Zone to me. Or I think more accurately, probably, it felt very old school Outer Limits to me.
Yeah, totally can see that.
But do you know where the name Calypso comes from? Do you know why they called it that?
No, I don't.
Calypso was a nymph in Greek mythology, and she was from the Odyssey, and she basically kept Odysseus from his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus for 7 years, I think.
Right.
So that was kind of like she was like in love with him and kind of basically made him cheat on his wife with her, and kind of like wouldn't let him leave.
Yeah, that's interesting. And given the very final moments of this episode, it seems like she could have sent him home at any time. And I understand that she was lonely, and I love the liar, the runner of the liar. She calls him a liar because she can tell by his whatever, his medical telemetry. She can tell his lying, but he can just tell her lying because they're lies. I don't know. I just really liked that he could see through her surface programming or whatever, what she was presenting.
By the way, I did look into it, and Michael Chabon has said that he would like to continue the story of Kraft and like actually retell the Odyssey in Star Trek.
Ooh, I love that idea. That's
it's a cool idea.
That's a really, really cool idea. Yeah, do that, Michael Chabon.
I would be down for it.
I mean, I suppose they could just keep making every year or two a short trek or two about Kraft and his further little episodes of the Odyssey. Mm-hmm. Or like you want, they could make an anthology series, and he could be like a multiple time appearer in different anthologies. Like, it'd be really neat to have different anthology type stuff happening where sometimes he's the main character like he was here, and then other times he's just like a background thing happening or whatever.
Yeah.
Super cool that they can do that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I would be down for that. And then they could just release it on one Blu-ray that's like the Craftasy.
Oh, man. I was surprised. I know the beauty of the door closing and it just saying funny face. Like, that's nice. It's beautiful. But if I were Kraft, I would have asked what my name was.
Oh, he knew.
You think?
I think he knew, yeah.
I mean, sure, they had that one moment together and, like, that's her favorite movie, all that stuff. But it does seem like they've had, like, seemed like a substantial amount of time together. It could have been other things they had that were touching. I don't know. If I had been Kraft, I would have been like, I would have wanted to know. And it almost seems heartless not to want to know.
A little bit.
It seems like the computer gave me a name. That's creepy. I'm out. My favorite moment in the whole thing was the please no poignant ironies.
Yeah.
It also, to me, that was almost a direct reference to Star Trek II.
Yeah?
When Kirk says, of all the souls I've known, he was the most human. Mm-hmm. And I love that him telling her he taught her what it means to be human, and her being like, no poignant ironies, was a really, I don't know, it just to me was like kind of an inside Star Trek joke. I liked it a lot.
That's funny. I didn't think about that at all. I just kind of just went, ha, that's funny.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's a good line.
It's a good line, period. But I did like that little bit of Star Trek 2 connection.
What it actually made me think of was one of the criticisms you hear a lot from people about The Next Generation is that the person who was most human on that show was Data.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but it is a funny line, and that's what it made me think of.
It is a funny line, and he's kind of the most relatable in many ways. Because they do, I think in the Next Generation they do take a lot of the humanity out of the characters to make them sort of perfectly evolved human robots that fit into the Federation. I like the show a lot, but I think they do that. Yeah. I mean, they did that deliberately. They didn't want too much conflict. They didn't want too many flaws in their protagonists. And I miss a good flaw.
Yeah. Though, I want to be fair to that show. I do giggle every time I watch. I think it's Captain's Holiday, where Picard realizes the reason that all the women are coming up to him on Risa is because the thing that Riker asked him to pick up was like a mating thing that let people know, if you had it out, it let people know that you were looking to get down.
Oh, that's funny. No,
and they're like, you should probably. Oh, it's great. Like, he's just sitting. He's like, I just want to read my book, and like women keep coming up to him. He's like, for God's sake, I want to be left alone. They're like, you should probably not have that out. Then that means that you want to do stuff. He's like, oh. He like puts it away and he goes, Riker.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah,
Riker. Old horn dog Riker.
Yeah, I think there's lots of good stuff in that show.
Absolutely.
I'm in no way bashing it completely. That whole idea of trying to make humans more perfect. It reminds me of the Serenity thing.
I know.
Where you're like,
me too.
You're trying to make people more what you want them to be, and it's like it's almost like a fictionalized version of doing that. It's. I mean, it is. It's like I think in Serenity and Firefly, I think that in many ways the Alliance is kind of the Federation. You know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in many ways, that makes Takuvma our Malcolm Reynolds. He's out there on the raggedy edge, man. Don't push him.
Oh man.
Oh, okay. We're officially getting a little too specific in our jokes. It's like to be a big Firefly fan and a big Discovery fan to get any of that.
Big Firefly fan, big Discovery fan. To that I quote Cybok, there are more of us than you know.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, guys, I liked Calypso. Go check it out if you haven't. It's on CBS All Access. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back with you real soon with more Star Trek Universe podcast.
Later, guys.
Live long and prosper. To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at Star Trek UCast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.